I got tired of being weak. Not tired in the motivational quote way. Not tired like I needed a break. Tired in the way that makes something inside you snap. Tired of looking at myself and knowing I wasn't living up to my potential. Tired of knowing I could do more but choosing comfort instead. Tired of promising myself I'd change tomorrow. Tired of losing and pretending it didn't bother me. Tired of making excuses and calling them reasons. Tired of watching other people win while I stayed exactly the same. This isn't a hype story. This is what happens when self-respect finally outweighs comfort. There's a moment most people never talk about. That moment when you realize the enemy isn't the world, it's you. It's your habits. It's your laziness. It's your fear. It's the part of you that keeps choosing easy over right. And when that realization hits, it hurts. Because now you can't lie anymore. You can't blame anyone else. You can't pretend you didn't know. You knew. You always knew. You just didn't want to do what it takes. Weakness doesn't announce itself. It hides. It disguises itself as rest, as balance, as I deserve this. It tells you you'll start later. It tells you one more day won't matter. It tells you you're already doing enough. And slowly, quietly, it steals your future. Not in one dramatic failure, but in 1,000 small decisions. You don't wake up a loser. You become one by choosing comfort over discipline every single day. And the worst part? You feel it. You feel it when you look in the mirror. You feel it when you avoid challenges. You feel it when deep down you know you didn't give your best. That feeling eats at you. It turns into self-hate. It turns into anger. It turns into frustration. And eventually, if you're lucky, it turns into resolve. Because one day, something breaks. Not your body, not your mind, your tolerance. You stop tolerating your own bullshit. You stop tolerating excuses. You stop tolerating being average. You stop tolerating weakness. And you say it. Not out loud. Not for anyone else. You say it to yourself. Never again. Never again will I let comfort decide my life. Never again will I quit because it's hard. Never again will I lie to myself and call it peace. That's where this starts. Not with motivation, not with inspiration, but with disgust. Disgust with who you've been, and a refusal to stay that way. Weakness feels safe. That's why it's dangerous. It keeps you warm. It keeps you comfortable. It keeps you small. Strength is lonely. Strength demands sacrifice. Strength demands that you do what you don't feel like doing. And that's why most people never become strong. They wait to feel ready. They wait to feel motivated. They wait for the right moment. That moment never comes. The truth is, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your discipline. And if your discipline is weak, your life will be too. That's the reality nobody wants to hear. You want confidence? Earn it. You want self-respect? Build it. You want power? Suffer for it. There is no other way. You don't become dangerous by staying comfortable. You become dangerous by mastering yourself. By doing the hard shit when no one is watching. By showing up when it would be easier to quit. By training when you're tired. By working when you're bored. By staying focused when distractions are screaming your name. This is where people misunderstand discipline. They think it's punishment. It's not. Discipline is protection. It protects you from your weaker self. It protects your future from your present impulses. It protects your potential from your excuses. And the first stage of discipline is ugly. It's painful. You don't feel proud. You don't feel strong. You feel exposed. You feel behind. You feel like you wasted time. And that realization hurts more than any workout ever will. But pain is honest. Pain tells you the truth. And the truth is this: you cannot become who you want to be by staying who you are. Something has to die. The lazy version of you. The comfortable version of you. The version that avoids discomfort. That version doesn't come with you. You either kill it, or it kills your future. There is no middle ground. And once you accept that, everything changes. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop asking, do I feel like it? You stop waiting for motivation. You move because you said you would. And that's where real strength starts. Not in intensity, but in consistency. Not in hype, but in habits. Not in showing off, but in showing up. This is the phase nobody claps for. No one notices. No one cares. You're grinding in silence. You're tired. You're sore. You're doubting yourself. And yet, you keep going. That's when you separate. That's when you become different. Because most people quit here. They quit when it stops being exciting. They quit when it gets lonely. They quit when results don't come fast enough. And you'll want to quit too. Don't lie to yourself. You'll have days where you ask, what's the point? Where you feel like you're doing everything right and still losing. That's the test. Not of your body, but of your character. Weak people look for reasons to stop. Strong people look for reasons to continue. And strength is built by choosing to continue when quitting would make sense. This is where the phrase, I got tired of being weak, becomes real. Not as a quote, but as a standard. You don't tolerate skipping. You don't tolerate half effort. You don't tolerate excuses. Not because you're harsh, but because you respect yourself too much to betray your own potential again. And slowly, something changes. Not overnight, not dramatically, but steadily. You start trusting yourself. Because you keep your promises to yourself. You say you'll train, and you do. You say you'll work, and you do. You say you'll stop wasting time, and you do. And that trust builds confidence, real confidence. Not loud, not flashy, quiet, unshakable. You walk differently, you speak differently, you think differently. Because you know you're doing the work, and that knowledge is powerful. You're no longer weak, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. And this is only the beginning. Once you stop being weak, life doesn't suddenly get easier. It gets quieter. The noise fades. The distractions lose their grip. The excuses stop sounding convincing. And that silence is uncomfortable at first. Because silence forces you to confront yourself. There's no dopamine, no applause, no one cheering you on, just you, your work, and the weight of responsibility. Most people can't handle that. They need chaos to feel alive. They need validation to feel worthy. They need someone to tell them they're doing enough, but you don't. Not anymore, because you've already decided. Never again. Never again will you wait for permission to become better. Never again will you beg motivation to show up. You move whether you feel like it or not. That's the difference now. You've crossed a line most people never do. You've stopped seeing yourself as a victim. You've stopped blaming circumstances. You've stopped pointing fingers. And that scares people. Because when you take full responsibility, you expose everyone still hiding behind excuses. They'll feel it. They won't know why they're uncomfortable around you. They'll just know something changed. You're not as available anymore. You're not as easygoing anymore. You're not laughing off mediocrity anymore. And they'll say you're different. They're right. You are. Because weakness made you acceptable. Strength makes you intimidating. And intimidation isn't loud. It's quiet discipline. It's consistency. It's standards. It's saying no to things that don't align with where you're going. This is where loneliness creeps in. Not because you're alone, but because fewer people can walk with you now. Your pace is different. Your priorities are different. Your tolerance is different. You don't waste time anymore. You don't entertain bullshit conversations. You don't indulge comfort for the sake of fitting in. And that costs you relationships. That's the part no one warns you about. Self-improvement is isolating. Discipline creates distance. Growth creates separation. Not because you think you're better, but because you're no longer willing to stay small for anyone. And this is where most people fold. Not in the gym, not at work, but in loneliness. They miss being understood. They miss being invited. They miss being normal, so they shrink themselves again. They soften their standards. They skip just this once. They go back. You don't, because you remember how it felt to hate yourself. You remember the frustration. You remember the regret. You remember looking in the mirror and feeling disappointed. And you refuse to go back there. So you keep going, even when it's boring, even when it's painful, even when progress feels invisible, because you understand something now. Results lag behind discipline. The work always comes before the reward. Always. That's the law. And weak people break under delayed gratification. Strong people live for it. They know that every rep, every hour, every sacrifice is stacking quietly. They know momentum is building even when nothing shows. They trust the process because they trust themselves. And trust is earned through action. That's why disciplined people don't panic. They've already been uncomfortable. They've already suffered on purpose. So when life hits them unexpectedly, they don't break. They adapt. They execute. They move forward. Because they've trained for discomfort. They've rehearsed pain. They've practiced showing up when it would be easier to quit. This is where real confidence comes from. Not from success, but from knowing you can handle suffering, knowing you can endure, knowing you won't fold when things get hard. That confidence doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need approval. It doesn't need validation. It's internal. It's solid. It's unshakable, and people feel it. They might not understand it, but they feel it. In the way you carry yourself, in the way you speak, in the way you don't rush. Because desperation is gone. Weakness is desperate. Strength is patient. Strength doesn't beg. Strength doesn't chase. Strength doesn't explain itself. It just exists. And that presence is heavy. You didn't get here by accident. You earned it. Every early morning, every hard choice, every time you said no to comfort, every time you showed up tired, every time you chose discipline over desire, this version of you was forged, not gifted, and that's why it lasts. You're no longer trying to be strong. You're becoming it. And once you taste that level of self-respect, there's no going back. You can't unknow what you know. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't pretend weakness feels acceptable anymore. It doesn't. It feels suffocating. It feels insulting. It feels beneath you. Not because you're arrogant, but because you've outgrown it. And this is where the real test begins. Because strength attracts pressure. Life will test you harder now. Responsibilities increase. Expectations rise. The margin for error shrinks. But you're ready, because you didn't avoid pain. You trained in it. And training changes everything. This isn't the end of your transformation. It's the point of no return. By now, you understand something most people never will. Weakness isn't just physical. It's mental. It's emotional. It's spiritual. It's the habit of avoiding responsibility. It's the habit of choosing relief over progress. It's the habit of lying to yourself and calling it peace. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. You start noticing weakness everywhere. In conversations, in routines, in environments, in people. And most importantly, you notice it when it tries to creep back into you. Because it will. Weakness never disappears forever. It waits. It waits for you to get tired. It waits for you to get comfortable. It waits for life to hit you hard enough that quitting sounds reasonable. That's when discipline matters most. Not when you're motivated. Not when you're winning. But when you're exhausted. When you're frustrated. When you feel unappreciated. When no one sees your effort. That's when your standards are tested. That's when your identity is tested. Because discipline isn't about intensity. It's about obedience to the standard you set for yourself. And if that standard is negotiable, so is your future. Strong people don't rise because they're special. They rise because they refuse to compromise. They refuse to betray themselves. They refuse to go back to the version they hated becoming. You remember that version. The one who procrastinated. The one who avoided pain. The one who complained but didn't act. The one who wanted results without sacrifice. You remember how that felt. Empty, frustrated, ashamed. And that memory becomes fuel. Not anger at the world. Anger at weakness. Anger at wasted potential. Anger at excuses. And anger, when controlled, becomes power. Not reckless power, focused power. The kind that sharpens your actions. The kind that makes you precise. The kind that makes you ruthless with your time and energy. You stop doing things that don't move you forward. You stop entertaining distractions. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't understand the work. Because explanation is a form of seeking approval. And you don't need approval anymore. You need results. You need progress. You need to become someone you respect. And respect starts internally. It starts when you do what you said you'd do. It starts when you don't quit on bad days. It starts when you show up without being watched. That's the part people don't see. The lonely mornings, the silent nights, the boring repetition, the days where nothing feels rewarding. Those days are doing more for you than the flashy ones ever will. Because those days build discipline, and discipline builds identity. Eventually, you stop fighting yourself. There's no inner debate anymore. No negotiation. No should I or shouldn't I. You just move. You train. You work. You execute. Not because you're excited, but because it's who you are now. This is the shift. When discipline stops being something you do and becomes something you are. You're no longer chasing motivation. You're no longer relying on feelings. You're grounded, stable, reliable. And that reliability makes you dangerous. Because dangerous people aren't emotional. They're consistent. They don't explode. They don't collapse. They don't drift. They apply pressure steadily, relentlessly, until something gives. And usually, it's the obstacle. Life responds differently to people like that. Not because life is fair, but because prepared people create their own leverage. Opportunities start appearing. Momentum starts building. Not magically, but logically. Because effort compounds. Discipline compounds. Self-respect compounds. And suddenly, you're no longer chasing the life you want. You're building it. Brick by brick. Day by day. Rep by rep. And the best part? You don't need anyone to see it. You don't need validation. You don't need praise. Because you know what it cost. You know what you endured. You know what you overcame. That knowledge gives you quiet confidence. The kind that doesn't speak much. The kind that doesn't show off. The kind that doesn't need to prove anything. And that confidence is rare. That confidence is earned. Most people will never feel it. Because most people will never commit fully. They'll flirt with discipline. They'll flirt with growth. They'll flirt with discomfort. But they'll never marry it. You did. The moment you said never again. Never again to weakness. Never again to excuses. Never again to betraying your potential. That moment changed everything. This isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming relentless. Relentless in effort. Relentless in standards. Relentless in self-respect. You will still fail sometimes. You will still struggle. You will still doubt yourself. But you won't quit. And that's the difference. Quitting is weakness. Struggling is growth. There's a difference. And now you know it. So when life tries to drag you back, when comfort whispers your name, when excuses sound logical, remember this feeling. Remember why you started. Remember who you refused to remain, because you didn't come this far to become weak again. You didn't suffer for nothing. You didn't sacrifice just to go back. You built this version of yourself intentionally, and you protect it at all costs. This is your standard now. This is your identity. This is your line in the sand. You got tired of being weak, and you never went back. Never again.